On this week's episode of The Practical Pro Musician, do you have your pair of practice pants? Maybe you should. Let's talk about it. Stay tuned. We love playing music, but it seems like the odds of making a living as a professional musician are about as high as winning the lottery. So the big question is this: how do musicians like us, with jobs, families, and responsibilities, get from where we are today to making a practical living playing music we love? Well, my name is Daniel Hadaway, and this show will give you the answers. This is The Practical Pro Musician. Well, hello again, my friend. How are you? Welcome back to The Practical Pro Musician. My name's Daniel, and I'm so happy you could join me once again as we talk about trying to become a professional musician, or making a living with music being a big part of it, or just having fun playing music if you don't care about making a living at all. All of that is practical and applies to what we talk about here. I guess what we talk about here applies to that. Either way, you're in the right place. If any of those words in any order that I just said appeal to you, you're in the right place. And even if you're not even into music, if you're just a creative person and you like to, you'd love to spend more time being creative in your life, I think you might enjoy this podcast as well. Either way, I'm happy you're here. You're in the right place. And so I know last week I talked about having a time crunch and being in the middle of a lot of stuff for my day job. I'm definitely still in the middle of this. In fact, I'm a day later than I usually am recording this podcast. And this is something that I definitely had to just draw a line in the sand for myself and just say, you know what? I'm going to record right now. I know I've got other things that are shouting at me, metaphorically speaking, demanding my attention, but I wanted to have a moment with you first. So I just said, you know what? Gotta do it right now. Gotta stop and gotta record this podcast. So interestingly, in this time of kind of being busy and having lots of things, a lot of obligations, there's lots of things I don't have a choice but to do right now. And as I'm there's an event for my day job that's coming up, a conference, and as we get close to that, there's more and more stuff in my day that are obligations, and at a certain point, it's going to get to where, especially in the few days leading up to it, that's coming up here soon, it's going to be at the point where I'm going to have 8 to 10 hour days full of things that I don't have a choice but to do. They all are going to have to be done right away with no choice. But I've been kind of in that mode for a little while now. And interestingly, I noticed today one thing that I was really proud of myself for, and I wanted to talk to you about it because I think that it's something that a lot of us as musicians or people who are creative types and have a passion or even a hobby, if it's just a hobby, just something on the side that's creative. I think a lot of us might struggle with this, and that is just not feeling guilty and not feeling bad about setting aside time to practice or to enjoy that thing that you enjoy. So for most of us listening to this podcast, it'll be playing your instrument, be music. But for the longest time, it was easy for me to take time out of my day and go, I'm a drummer, so practice playing the drums, doing all the things that I knew that I enjoyed doing them, but I also knew that there was some kind of investment in my future, right? I wanted to be a professional musician. So if I was going to take an hour out of the day and play drums, to me, that was worthwhile, even if I was, delaying the end of my workday when I worked from home, or I was taking time away from something else. That was okay to me because in my mind, it's like, well, I'm investing in at some point I'm going to be making an income from this. And so this is my investment in that. And then when I had a career in music, it was also easier to justify it, to take time out and play music because, again, I was maintaining the thing that was providing an income for me. It was just like It's like getting in a car and driving to the office. You can't get to work if you don't drive to the office, and you can't be a professional musician if you're not playing your instrument, relatively well. And so it's interesting though, but in those two scenarios, what I've realized was that I started equating whether or not something was worthwhile to do with whether or not there was an income attached to it, a direct line drawn. So before I was a professional musician, I said I could do this. I could take time out to practice because I'm gonna make money from it someday. And then when I was making money from it, it was I can take time out to practice because I am making money from this someday. But I will tell you that now that I'm not making a majority of my income from music anymore, it has become a lot harder for me to justify it to myself to take time out to play drums, to play guitar, to record, to write. A lot of the things that I love doing, it's been harder in my mind for me to justify doing it. And I'm aware that I should justify it. And this is kind of what I'm getting at today, and what I've caught myself doing. I realize that I actually do value things that don't make money more than I think in my everyday work life. I just didn't realize it. But to get back to my point, it's really hard for me to sit down and take time out of, like, for example, since I work from home, I kind of can structure my day outside of meetings or phone calls or whatever. I can kind of structure my day how I want it to be. But it's so hard for me to stop in the middle of a work day and say, all right, I'm going to put off, some things that I'm getting paid directly to do for 30 minutes while I play drums. Because I don't have any plans or desire at this point to become a professional musician again, to make money from my drumming in that way. So it's really hard for me to justify stopping something that is making money to do something that, is not directly making money. So, it's a challenge. I want to be better about that, but it's just a challenge for me right now. Now, one thing that I did catch myself doing though, that I realize I've been doing for a while now, and I'm very proud of, is actually, this might be embarrassing for me, but we're friends here, so I'll tell you. One thing that I really enjoy and always have is, taking baths. I think it's more because I like having an excuse to sit still and quietly and not do anything for 15 or 20 minutes or whatever. And so I really enjoy that. And so as much as I can, I like to take a break, like during my lunch break if I'm working at home, and do that. In fact, I like taking baths so much that in the house we're building right now, we're going to have it's an insanely large tub. It was I'm a pretty tall guy, and it's tall enough for me to lay all the way down flat in. It's huge. Anyway, it's very important to me. So, but I realized, I don't mind delaying my work that I'm quote unquote making money from by 15 minutes or so to do that, to take a bath in the middle of my day. And I'm actually kind of proud of that. I'm like, you know what? It's not so much I'm not earning money or developing myself professionally, but it does give me a sense of mental health, at least, that I'm slowing down for a few minutes each day in doing that. And I realized, you know what? I actually do, somewhere in my subconscious, actually see the value in doing things like that to take care of myself. And now I realize that now that I've kind of moved on from touring, at least as a musician, that playing music should sit in that same kind of space in my life where I do it for my own mental health. And it's okay that I'm not trying to make money from it. It doesn't mean that it's not important and I shouldn't spend time doing it. It's actually very valuable. We all need things like that in our lives. We need things that we do because we love them, and that's the only reason we do them. And in fact, if you're a musician and you do want to make a career out of music, I would encourage you to find something else besides music to do that you do only because you love it. Not with a career aspiration attached to it. Find something like that. And then the other piece of this that I've realized it's been really hard for me, and this is kind of like a little bonus side note on this, is something that in the past has helped me a lot, especially as someone who works from home, but this definitely applies to us as musicians and finding time to practice and things like that, is as much as you can, and this is not realistic for everyone, but I think there's a piece of this that we can all do, is finding a different place for work and for this thing that you enjoy. If it's not music, if it's something else, finding a different place. Maybe it's a different room in your house, or maybe it's just a corner of a room in your house. And just doing that is something that's so subconscious. It's so perfect. I definitely, the first time we had a house that had an office in it, that really made a difference for me, because I was able to say, you know what? If I am working, I'm going to go into this other room, and that's the place for work. And then if I want to take a break and grab my laptop and go read some news stories or whatever, I can go take that laptop into a different room of my house and enjoy it there. But then it's like I can kind of set boundaries for myself. And even more so when I was able to take my drums out of my office and put them in a separate room as well, that was a huge deal. Again, for the same reason, like this is my creative space. This is where I go to not be plugged into the outside world and can focus on being creative, being a musician, doing those kinds of things. Now, I know that that's not realistic for everyone. Like I mentioned, you might have just a spot, a corner of a room in your house that you go to. Or even if you don't have a corner of the place that you live, of a room somewhere, if you don't have anything like that, it can be something as simple as, and this might sound silly, but just like changing clothes when you sit down to play music or do this other thing that you love. Change something about yourself to help your subconscious mind connect that this is something different. We're gonna go into a different mindset here, and we're gonna enjoy this, or we're gonna just spend time focused on this other thing. This is not the same as what we were doing before. We are now doing something different. Incidentally, that's something that I learned being on tour with wardrobe changing for a show. At first, when I first started touring, I thought I was so cool. I have my show clothes that I put on right before a show, something kind of cool that I thought maybe looked really cool on stage. And then there was a kind of a middle spot where I kind of got over that. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter what I wear on stage. That's not what I'm here for. That's not what my band's about. And so I just kind of wear whatever I was wearing that day on stage. But then I realized that mentally I was having a hard time getting in a focused headspace for playing a show every night, and really being present and aware of what was going on musically. And so I started kind of going back, and I started wearing show clothes again. And it wasn't always, the second time around, it wasn't so much about fashion as it was about, again, this mental headspace thing of making a change so that I'm aware that something's different for me. And so maybe you can do that when you practice. Change clothes. Have a practice shirt that you wear, or your practice pants. That sounds awesome. So anyway, hopefully this helps you out. I just want to say that there's always value in music and taking time out of your day. Now, obviously you have responsibilities and obligations, just like I do, just like we all do. But don't only equate the value of what you're doing with how much money it's generating. You're a human being. You're not a money machine. And you weren't created to just generate a bunch of cash. You were actually generated to create and to follow your purpose. So don't get too caught up in the results you're generating all the time to the point where you are unable to enjoy things just for the sake of enjoying them. All right. Thanks for joining me this week so much. I'm glad you are here. We will talk again very soon. Bye for now.